I thought maybe a little pridefully that it wouldn't really affect me that much. And I think even looking back now, I've been out just over 3 years, and those first 2 years were so difficult that you lose that family, that you use the daily touch points with people that normally you're seeing every day, or you're spending weeks at a time with 24/7 in the field, or if others are deploying, you're spending so much time together. So I really did miss it when I left.
Hello, everyone. Patrick and I are really excited to come to you today with a new series that will be rolling out in our podcast. So if you've been with us this far, by the time you listen to this, we will have released just about 30 episodes between the Book of Law, Season 1, and Leadership and Motivation Unleashed, Season 2. We've covered topics across the spectrum, everything that connects to workplace, ethics, politics, interaction, what helps people succeed, what causes people to fail. We've tackled some really timely topics like AI, remote work, and then some really old school topics like how to handle bad behavior, right? How to plan a career path that will get you where we want to go. You've heard our hot takes on all of these. In many cases, Patrick and I agree with each other. In some cases, we disagree with each other. And we've also had such different experiences that we may have been in similar situations, but came out of it with very different takes or different perspectives because of our personalities, because of the roles that we held, and also the types of environments and the types of perspectives that we came to those with. And we hope you've enjoyed it. What we're going to do next is something a little interesting. Over the course of some of these same episodes, we have mentioned names of people that we admire, people that we've worked with over the years that have taught us lessons, that have dropped quotes, that have handled situations in really unique ways. And what we are going to do over the next series is introduce you to some of our favorite people. Patrick and I have reached out to some of the folks in our network who we feel have particularly unique experiences, perspectives, and stories that we'd like for them to share with you. And they've graciously agreed to come on our podcast and have conversations with us. And some of them will share different takes that they have on topics we've already covered. And others might share just different unique perspectives that we wouldn't be able to offer because we haven't had those experiences. And so over the next, probably couple of months, we are going to introduce you to some of our favorite people. We're really curious to hear from you if you like this format, if you'd like to have more conversations with others, or if you have any questions for our guests. I'm sure they'll be really excited to hear your feedback as well.
I love diversity of thought, and the list of people are diverse as it comes with regards to their experiences and the way they think and the greatness they've delivered into the environments they've populated. So I think everyone's going to enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Leadership and Motivation. I'm joined by Rachel Book. She's outside of New York City. I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth today. And a very special guest, Berkley Brown. For the listeners who have known me for a while, knows this is Lisa's daughter, our daughter. Super excited to have her on the podcast. I think it's really cool that this will be the second time in this young person's life that I've invited her to do something like this. The first time I was working at Fiserv, she was actually in the field doing some work when she was in the Army as a young lieutenant, and she called in from a vehicle in the middle of an operation to talk to my staff about leadership, and they still talk about it because she seriously rang the bell. So I'm super excited that she's with us today. She joins us from outside of Washington, D.C. She works for Northrop Grumman Corporation now. Couldn't be more proud of her. Graduate of University of San Diego. She was a coxswain on the men's rowing team. Didn't always make her mother happy, but, she had a good time doing all that. Graduated proudly, joined the United States military, served our country proudly, and then landed with this amazing company doing some really amazing work that we're not allowed to talk about today. So don't expect any inside Northrop Grumman stories. This is a leadership and motivation chat. That was for the Northrop HR in case they're going to listen later. But Berkley, why don't you fill in some of the blanks I left it at 100,000 feet? You spend a minute telling people about your journey to where you are now, and then we'll get into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very lucky to have an incredible family that allowed me to go out to California for college. And I will say, I think when I graduated, I felt a little bit lost in life and didn't quite have a direction or a path, I think, as my family likes to call it, and received some really great advice and kind of life guidance to look at the military, because that was what my dream was, to do work that would require security clearances and quite a bit of experience before they allow you in. So thankfully, Patrick had quite a bit of Army experience and told me that I could join and I could do it. And I said, no way. There's no way I'll even pass basic training. There's no way I'll make it. But I had a very supportive family behind me and was able to make it through that initial training in the Army. Became a chemical officer while I was in, also known as CBRN. It really was a left field for me. I didn't do any STEM or any science or technical classwork, but really grew to love it and really enjoyed my time in the Army. Once I completed my 4 years, I shifted out of active duty and moved to the civilian side of the house, where I came out to the DC area, started grad school at George Mason, graduated this past December with a master's in international security, and then started working at Northrop a few years ago as their contracts administrator in their space sector. So again, another major left turn to go from groundwork on the Army to crazy world of space and everything we're doing there. But it's been an incredible journey. So happy to be where I'm at and so happy to be on the show.
Well, your supportive family is also a very proud family. So we think you're amazing. So first question, take your time thinking about it. I inserted the word millennials in the question on purpose because there's boomers, Gen X, millennials, like you're a massive generation and has all kinds of things and words associated with it. So I think I was trying to pull on that thread, but after I sent it and I was reading it this morning to get ready for our call this afternoon, I don't know if service changes generation to generation much. The technology is different. The weaponry is different. Some of the behaviors and things I experienced versus what you experienced, particularly in boot, the behaviors of drill sergeants were certainly different, 25 years apart. But the exit, I think, is the same. I think. So what I was trying to get at with what I'm about to say to you is share what the experience is leaving the cocoon of military service. And it is a bit of cocoonish. It is, you speak the same language. You dress the same. The mission orientation is drilled in tight. There is no confusion. Now, look, every unit has its own version of blah, 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 but you get what I'm saying. At the top of the house in Big Mother Green, everyone knows what the job is every day and there's no confusion. Mm-hmm. The motivation is usually the same. So it varies soldier to soldier, but it's the same. But the exit, depending on socioeconomic situations and geography and blah, 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 could be different. But I think the feeling of departure, of hanging the uniform up. And look, you turned down CCC. So I'd like you to talk about that. You made a call as an adult. Your mother and I had nothing to do with it. We were talking to my kid on a podcast, but like mother, I used my words. I thought captain would have been amazing because you would have killed it because everything you do is great. But talk about that too, like the decision to exit for you personally, and then what it felt like on the way out, and then how you got to where you are. That's the first question. So walk through that if you could.
Yeah, I think leaving was very difficult. And I say that even though I knew when I went in, I really was geared up and had told myself, I just want to do my initial 4 years active. And some people go in knowing they want to be career, which I think is great. Some people go in and discover that through time. Maybe they do 5, 10 years and say, I'm going to stick around for the full 20 or beyond. When I went in, I thought, I do want to serve and I'd like to do my 4 years. But after that, I think there's a different industry or there's a different career path I'd like to go. And even though I knew that from the very beginning, it was still so hard to leave at the end of my 4 years. And I was coming up to where they were trying to book me to go to Captain's Career Course, which is a training where I would have promoted to the next rank, and you receive quite a bit of responsibility when you hit that level. I really enjoyed my time in the Army. I actually loved the last role that I had. It was my favorite role that I think I've had in my entire career so far. I loved it. I had no complaints about it. I felt being an XO or an executive officer was perfect for me. I loved the role. And I still put in my packet to get out at the end of my 4 years. And the hardest part is leaving the people, and it's leaving the comfort and familiarity. I mean, the Army's hard. I don't want to downplay that at all. It's a lot of time in the field, and I was never in a unit that did deploy. But if you are deploying regularly, it's very difficult. But it's a family. You bond. I don't think in any other way on the civilian side can quite compare, unless you have a very stressful, almost where areas are traumatic, that you would have that type of bond. You spend so much time together. You go through things that no sane person would ask you to do as a civilian, to be honest. There's so many moments, even just sitting here looking back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe we all did that. But I love the people. And when I put in my packet, I was very sad to go, but I knew that I wanted a career that was different than what the Army would have had. For as big as it is, there's not really that many options as you promote up, right? It's very regulated, and you move up to captain, you become a commander, and then you command your unit, and then maybe you go into logistics, or maybe I would have gone into a chemical role, which are all great careers, I think, to have, but it wasn't something that I wanted. So I made the decision to get out, and people told me when I was transitioning out, because you go to quite a few classes and they really do try to support you on your way out to say, make sure you're set up for jobs. What are you going to do for your healthcare? They try and be logistical, and they really do try to help you. There's a little bit of a stigma, I think, when you get out, right? Because you're not in your unit anymore. You're not supporting Great Mother God Army anymore. You're moving out, and nothing wrong with that, but you'll have a little bit less attention. I did have resources to get out, and they'll tell you it's going to be difficult, right, to transition out. It's almost like moving to a totally different way of life, because the Army does encompass so much of your day-to-day. I thought, maybe a little pridefully, that it wouldn't really affect me that much. And I think even looking back now, I've been out just over 3 years, and those first 2 years were so difficult that you lose that family, that you use the daily touch points with people that normally you're seeing every day, or you're spending weeks at a time with 24/7 in the field, or if others are deploying, you're spending so much time together. So I really did miss it when I left. It was very hard. I think not specifically as a millennial per se, I think it really does apply to anyone that's getting out. You almost don't focus enough on yourself and setting yourself up for success for when you get out. I don't know if maybe that was a personal experience for me. I was 2 months maybe from leaving the military, finally to leave the military, and I was still going on training exercises for a month at a time. And Patrick actually came to visit me and said, what are you doing to plan out your next steps? And I was like, not enough. I'm not sitting down and taking it really seriously. I just was still keeping myself so involved in work. And I'm not saying that's a mistake, but I think it is so beneficial to take the time and plan out your next steps and utilize the resources the military has. Not to toot, NG Northrop's horn here, but there are these skill bridge jobs that they offer to like active duty military that are looking to transition out. And you can move straight into a civilian job. There is no time where you're waiting to see what your next steps are. You're already employed right when you get out. So there are a lot of resources. I don't think I took full advantage. I think I was very focused on trying to keep my unit going as I was trying to get out the door. And I think I could have handled that a little better. But yeah, I ended up leaving and then moved straight out. I went back home for a little bit and was able to spend time with family, and then moved out to Virginia. One of the hardest parts about the transition was I didn't realize how used to having a hierarchy in my life was from being in the Army. So when I started looking at jobs, even looking at job titles, I was like, well, are they entry-level people? Are they senior leadership? No one's telling you if they're a captain or if they're a major or if they're an enlisted NCO. I had no clue. And it was actually the recruiter for Northrop Grumman that sat me down and said, here's how you read it as if you're a military person. When they say administrator, you're looking at a lieutenant role. And he just kind of made sense. And that was incredibly helpful. So I think understanding how the civilian counterpart works to what you know in the military was one of the most helpful things I had when I moved to Northrop. But in between, Northrop wasn't the first job that I had. When I got out of the military, I went to grad school and just took jobs that I could find to keep myself floating out in Virginia. I ended up interning with the State Department. And that was almost the complete opposite of the Army. That was a very different life to live, but it was very interesting. And then I happened to get recruited to come to Northrop Grumman, and I've just loved it ever since. I'm really happy to be working here. And I think what drew me to it is I wanted to be somewhere that was big, like the Army was. I wanted somewhere that had organization like that. I in no way could have become like a small business owner. I can't be floating out like that. I needed the support and the structure. And I found it at Northrop. So I think that was another thing too, is understanding what you want. When you come out of the Army, if you really love the structure of it, you should look for that. If that was your least favorite part, maybe you wouldn't recommend it on the civilian side.
As Goda listens to this, you should say a little something.
Goda, you're my hero. I love you. I will name my firstborn after you. You have brought me to where I am in life now. I actually really can't understate how important he was to getting me to Northrop Grumman and to shaping me so that when I went to interview, I wasn't a nervous wreck. He was incredible. So I love him.
You were his last hire before you retire.
I am so grateful he stayed to let me get in because I couldn't have done it without him.
Awesome. Hello, Mark.
What an awesome career story. It's very self-aware of you to recognize that you needed that structure, because I think not everyone knows that. And then they start floundering. I actually remember hearing years ago that many transitioning service members end up owning franchises. And so at one of these veterans conferences that I was at representing my employer, the Franchise Association of America, or whatever industry association, was there because they said that veterans tend to do, and again, this is a sweeping stereotype, but veterans tend to do really well being in business for themselves, but not by themselves. So you have the scaffolding of a franchise, whether it's, I don't know, a McDonald's or it's a whatever type of store. You've got a lot of the framework that's set up. For you, I think Northrop Grumman was probably a very natural next step. As a defense contractor, you're surrounded by other former military. Probably the civilians are the ones that feel out of place.
Yeah, it's definitely, maybe just to do a little bit of a plug here, it's very veteran friendly. And I think just due to the work that they have, it made it much easier for me to transition to day-to-day life at work. And I found that it just meshed with my expectations of what I wanted out of my work life. Makes it a lot easier to transition.
Yeah.
Are you in a private call booth?
Yes.
They like those contractor dollars. That's a fancy call.
It looks like it's all soundproofed, right?
I really hope so, because I've seen some people walking by, so hopefully they're not.
No, the audio
listener.
Yeah. No, it's coming in clear, no echoes.
Great.
That's awesome. Okay, ready for the next question?
Please.
Okay, so we know that there are some restrictions around the level of detail that you're allowed to share about your current job. So please do not go into any of that territory.
Okay.
But what I'm curious to hear about is your experience with leadership, how that differs in your civilian jobs as compared to your military experience. Is it the same because people leading people or people leading people? Or does the structure, the environment, the matrix aspect have unique nuances?
I think what I find to be the biggest differentiator between military leadership and civilian leadership is there's a lot more give and take that's expected on the civilian side. And I say this, I guess I should caveat this first. I have yet to have a leader in the military or on the civilian side, especially at Northrop, that has not just been phenomenal, supportive, incredible. I felt very lucky. Even my first commander out of the Army was just incredible. And so I really feel like I've had a great experience, knock on wood, that continues with leadership. But what I found is in the military, it's a little bit more expected that they tell you, go do X, Y, Z, and you go do it.
Because I said so.
They really have to explain themselves to you. I can't imagine asking them to. So you have your orders, if I could say that, and you go and you execute. I think what I found here, especially now that I've started to get my feet under myself, is just even earlier today, I had a meeting with my boss's boss for work that we're doing. And as we went through it, I said, so what do we do here? And he would say, well, what do you think? right? And so there's a lot more of, they want to develop you so that you can have the same experience they have. And a lot, not to say there's more critical thinking, because there definitely is critical thinking in the Army. I don't want to stereotype there, but it definitely is a lot more of, let's coordinate together. And I think that's not even just between yourself and your leadership. What I found is in the military, you had your unit, and unless you were doing something major, a major deployment or a major operation, you were just working within your unit. And there weren't a lot of people that I had to go reach around to get something done, or I knew exactly who it was. What I found here is, wow, the amount of coordination that goes into putting one presentation together is astounding, or to get a document reviewed, right? And so now I'm having to rely a lot more on cross-functional coordination, just a lot more time to learn what other people know in their specific area and have that apply to whatever I'm doing. And so I think it's a mixture of just a lot more give and take with my direct leadership and a lot more coordination across the company as a whole.
I'm just in awe watching someone who I've known since they were this big on this screen talking so adulting.
She's a real grown-up.
Yeah, Patrick. She is. She's amazing.
I really try. When I bring it on, I got it.
You're adulting. You're adulting.
I'm trying.
All right. So the next question, same thing, Berk. Give it a quick grind and then just first thing that comes to mind, spit it out. But mission execution. You touched on a little bit with the boss's boss. Well, what would you do? Like in the military, the op orders come down. They're clear as the day is long. And then there is critical thinking because no plan goes right. Like, that's why you were a big shot officer. The plan sounds great, but something's always going to go wrong. And then you have to step in as the person and course correct, execute accordingly. What's the difference? Is the stress level different? Now, logically, you'd say, well, of course, like, it's the military. They're always stressful. But your mission at Northrop, without divulging, and any of the groups within Northrop are all mission critical. They may not be the tip of the spear, but they're the reason the spear is flying through the air. So you reference it as ground force, and now you're in a space program, all the other things going on there. Can you feel a stress level difference? And how do you manage the emotional intelligence aspect of that from a leadership perspective? And look, you're, for now, a single contributor, which is a choice you want to make. You and I have talked about that a few times in the backyard over a beverage. And even when you were getting out, like, you did the leadership thing in the military, and don't know if that's your path. And as a plug for Northrop, if they're listening, and for you, Berk, one more time, you crush leadership. Don't always shade away from it. But leadership isn't always a chain of command. You don't need a team under you in boxes to be a leader. You're a natural leader. So the matrix configuration in which you're operating in at Northrop, is there a compare and contrast? Do you pull from your recesses of your memory, even though you're not that old, but do you pull back to a couple of years ago when you had teams working for you in uniform to what you're trying to do now, working with sales and technology and all the other teams, whatever they're called there? What is that like for you? And do you have examples of that, how you navigate it?
Yeah, what stuck out to me the most that you said is the stress level different. And to be honest, I don't know if it's maybe just the week I'm having, but no, same amount of stress, if not more so. And it's funny because I think until you're in the military, it doesn't quite hit home, but there's a lot of standing around, waiting, and then all of a sudden it's hurry up. You got to do this right now. Hurry up and wait is really what we said a lot. And then as soon as you had to be on, you had to be on. And then you were going, right? But there's a downtime. There's a push and a pull to how busy you are and how stressful it is. Not that it's a bad thing, but since I've come to Northrop, I've had the very special position of working in incredibly stressful programs. And it's been great. For me, I think that's how I learn. And so I've really appreciated it. But I will say that if it's not a way that you learn or not a way that you're comfortable learning, if that's not your environment that you thrive in, then I think the way to protect yourself is to find a role that fits your needs, right? Especially if you're looking for, I want a work balance that will allow me to learn and grow, but maybe it's not too stressful day to day. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I've just been able to maneuver into positions where it's been stressful, but I've been able to learn more because of it. I've gained a significant amount of experience and a lot of contact with leadership because of it, because these are major programs that require a lot of intensive review. I think when it comes to maneuvering in stressful situations in the Army, more or less everyone kind of knew their role, right? You usually had a very set job, especially when you were a leader, right? You knew who your troops were. Hopefully, you knew where you were supposed to be and what you were supposed to be doing and how to go do your mission. But Patrick hit it right on the nail. Your first plan never survives. We always said your first plan never survives first contact. So as soon as something happens, it disrupts your whole plan. You try to prepare for it. An example that I thought of off the top of my head, it was actually just a training exercise. It was on the base that we were stationed at. I was running a training that our battalion commander had asked for, and it was like a 3-day long event. And you stay out in the field the whole time. The people that are participating, you stayed out in the field the whole time. And day 2, late at night, we had some soldiers that were doing this exercise, and one of them got injured. And the lieutenant who was working with me that was running this particular portion did not have a backup plan. What do I do if someone gets injured? And I will say, if you've been in the military, that's almost always a backup plan you need to have. So that was very stressful. And I ended up leaving the course myself to take her to the hospital to get checked out. But I had to place trust in the leaders that I left behind that would keep it running in my absence. And they did, and everything worked out fine. And there are no major repercussions out of that. But it was such a learning experience for me. And again, it's another one of those sayings I think a lot of people say is trust but verify. Yeah. You can trust people to have a plan, but you should verify it. And the role, it carries over very well to the role I'm in now. The day-to-day work I do is based around our contracts that we have as Northrop Grumman within our space sector, within a specific unit. And I am constantly verifying, are we doing what we're supposed to? Are we meeting customer expectations? Are we doing something outside of what we're supposed to? Like, it's very much, you're constantly, I want to trust the team. I want to trust my customers, but you are always verifying. I don't know if there's anything super specific I can say from the job, but I will say that one of the programs I worked previously, I've since moved off of it, but there's a program at Northrop Grumman called HALO, which stands for Habitation and Logistics Outpost. And it's a module that would integrate into a larger space station that orbits the moon. So they're setting it up as a launch pad to both get down to the moon, conduct studies there, whatever their mission is on the moon, be able to come back to this space station, or maybe one day launch pad off to Mars. So it's a huge program, very stressful. There was a lot happening when I first came onto the program, and it just never stopped. It was definitely drinking from a water hose when I moved over there. And because it was stressful and because there was a lot happening, you just had to learn or really tap into the skills that I had gained from the Army of, I need to know everyone's role. I need to know what they're doing. I need to know what their expectations are for me to do my job, because I was very new in. And so if you're sitting in a meeting and someone says, oh, well, we really need to do X, Y, Z, they may not always say, hey, that's you. They just throw it out into the ether thinking, oh, they know that's their job. That was actually a huge learning curve for me. Because I will say in the Army, they'd be like, Lieutenant Brown, go do this. Got it. Okay, this is my job. I think I was learning what are the expectations that you have in your role on the civilian side, because people may not always be quite as upfront as they are in the Army. Direct. People may not always be quite as direct. And so a lot of it was learning what are the expectations for myself? What should my expectations be for other people and the roles that I work with day to day, right? Like, how do I know this isn't my job? I run into that too. Someone asks me to do something and I may go talk to someone that has my role and they're like, why are you doing that? So huge learning process on the civilian side, huge, especially from how are you operating day to day. But yeah, I think those are my biggest lessons.
We pick our topics based on what we imagine is on the minds of many, but we are not mind readers. So please use our form, which we'll link for you in the show notes, to suggest additional topics we should consider, request to be a guest on our show, or give us constructive criticism, which will make our podcast more valuable for many. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
It's so cool what I'm hearing. And
what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm missing something or if I'm just creating something in my mind, but you've taken situations that are mission critical, time sensitive, really important. And the way that you protect yourself from getting overly stressed or overwhelmed is by getting clarity and structure on the who does what and where and why and how. So you always know what's expected of you, who the other players are, and that's been your coping mechanism. That's really cool. It takes many people decades to figure that stuff out. So you're already a couple of steps ahead. That's really impressive.
She's always been older than her age, maturity-wise.
And it doesn't mean it makes it easier, but these are your mechanisms to navigate and survive. It's interesting, in all the work that I've done with veterans and transitioning to the civilian workforce over the years, I would sometimes hear the opposite experience where many veterans were they found it very jarring when they ended up in some corporate America conference room and everyone's freaking out about some PowerPoint emergency. And they've just come from military exercises or active duty or combat zones where things were life or death. Right? If you make a mistake or you're stressed out about something, it's like a real national security situation. And then they show up at work and people are freaking out about the color blue on this PowerPoint slide is a slightly different shade. And there's some cognitive dissonance that they experience from that. And they almost don't know what to do with it. And it creates this sense of, why am I even here? Is this even important? How can I add value?
100%. And I will say, I think the timing is really right for this podcast because I feel like I finally started to settle in to my role. But if you had talked to me in my first 6 months at Northrop Grumman, I'm sure my mother remembers I would call her crying after work saying, I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone thinks I'm an idiot. Like just the natural doubt I think you have from leading the structure, for me, the structure of the Army where I knew what I was supposed to do. And then I rolled. I'm like, oh my Lord. People want to talk to me about legal terms and I don't know what to do. I felt very overwhelmed. There are moments, if I can be completely honest, there are moments where we'll be sitting and we're reworking one paragraph of a 100-page document. And by like hour number 3 of working on the same paragraph, I'm like, what are we doing? What can we do differently? But it's so crazy because I've seen that come back full circle where that paragraph made all the difference. So I've been here long enough, luckily, to see the impact of what some of that stuff does. And so I appreciate it a bit more now. But that first 6 months to a year, not at all.
So I'm going to round out and pull the thread further on that question because it was a bit of a two-parter. And a bit of it is a setup because for the listeners, you do not do a good job of this. Hot kettle. And this young lady grew up watching me navigate my career. And Burke, if you've listened to the other episodes, or just to get a feel for it, like I bare my soul. Like I know I wasn't around a lot. Mom ran the house and I was traveling. I was doing all those things and I've had to reconcile a lot of that for myself. So this isn't me. That kind of comment that's coming. And your answer needs to be authentic, meaning I know you don't do this, but you need to think about it for yourself too. You're doing 12, 14-hour days at Grumman. Yes or no?
I have.
You do. Weekends?
Yes.
Your coworkers may be the same. Maybe a lot of people out there in the world, work ethics may be different. It doesn't matter if you wore the uniform or not. I know a lot of people that didn't serve who have work ethics a mile long. We all do.
Yeah.
But where do you get that? When do you start to insert the balance, Burke? And how do you balance it? When do you take care of yourself? This is what's interesting, right? Like it's a bit of a parallel for both of us. Like when I got out, what did I start doing? I started flying airplanes and I was addicted to it, right? School all day, flying all night. I was not getting a lot of rest. Don't worry, everybody. It was safe. But here you are exiting uniform. Now you're in a really mission critical environment again. If you haven't stopped, the needle has not come out of your arm. So do you have advice for young professionals or professionals of any ilk about work-life balance or work-life freedom, as I like to call it, because it is a choice to take care of yourself. Do you have any comments you'd like to make, Ms. Berkley?
Yes. And I think as you have already introduced, I'm a bit of a hypocrite when it comes to this portion. I will say that the weekend work and the 12-hour days or the very long days that I've had before, it's usually a surge. It is not how I live my day to day. I really don't know if I could sustain it. But to be honest, I think I probably could. I think I'd adapt and I would do it. To be 100% on, I really think I would. And I say this, I'm not sure how much you've talked about mom, but my mother is a machine. And when she worked, she was raising a child and putting in, I don't know how many hours a day, but I'd like to assume all 24. She's incredible. And you have an incredible work ethic. And so I think it's finding the balance that works for you on a personal level.
Yeah, we didn't do you any favors from
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What we should do, neither one of us.
I don't know. I think she turned out pretty great from what you guys did.
I think I did pretty well. I do think that where I struggle is that if I allow myself, I'll put in extra hours. But I think what I've found, harder to have it in the Army because usually those extra hours are dictated to you. I'm not necessarily going out and looking for extra work. In the Army, what I have is enough. So that was a little different. But even then, it would tend to be more surge support. I would work my usual, I guess you were getting up for PT early. If you discount that portion of it, you're working from 8 to 5. Now, there may be a month where you don't get to go home and you're living in the dirt and you haven't had a hot meal in 2 weeks and you haven't had a shower and you're no bathrooms, whatever, right? There are times that are like that, but it's for a very set amount of time. And then you go home, right? And then you're outside of that environment. I'm still learning the balance on the civilian side. I think because I have been put in positions where we're working programs that require a lot of time and effort, I've allowed myself to put in more time and effort. I also think I'm in a situation where I don't have to go home and take care of kids at a certain hour of the day, right? I'm in a very different position than a lot of other people are. It's a lot easier for me to spend the extra hours and the extra calories at work. So I think it just fits to your personal style, what you need, and maybe what your family needs from you as well. But I will say, even here at Northrop, we had a really crazy time on Halo, the program I had worked, and it required a lot of support for maybe 2 months. I was working a lot more than what one would deem as normal, right? Like a normal work week. But we were working towards a goal, and there was an end in sight. And I think that made all the difference. I don't think that's something I would have sustained for like my entire career at Northrop. Right now, I'm a little bit of a surge support this week, a lot of extra hours this week, but I have an end in sight and I know that it won't be like this all the time. So I think that's how I justify it in my head, at least when I go do 12, 14-hour days, right? This isn't every day. I don't want to do it every day. I like to have the weekends to myself. I like not to come to work on the weekend. But if it's for something, if we owe our customer something, then that's where I'm going to be, right? I'm going to come to work. But I also think, and I think I touched on this earlier, I found a job that fit my personality and what my expectations for my work life were going to be. And that was to work hard and to work towards something meaningful. It was one of the biggest things I wanted out of my job was I want to contribute to something bigger than myself. And I remember talking to Mark Nesgoda about this. And I said, in the Army, you may not always have a specific mission you're going towards, but you're in an organization that is for something bigger than yourself. And I need that on the outside as well. And I found that at Northrop because the stuff we do it's really incredible. The work we do is really incredible. And so I feel like I'm working towards something bigger and that helps me get through it. But, you know, if someone's like, can you stay for 4 hours after work to watch a video I made? I'd be like, no. Dumb. So, you know, give and take.
Well, I think the message out of that is do what you love what you do.
Well, yeah.
But as the parent on the phone here, you got to take care of yourself too. And just Berkley, but for the audience too. Like whether you're a millennial building your career, because if you break the machine, there is no career. I just got lucky. Like I tell people it all the time. I knock on wood, I haven't had any health issues. I'm X years old. I don't take any prescription medication. I'm able to work out all the time. Like I've taken care of the machine. So for the listeners and for the young lady from Northrop, you got to take care of the machine.
So I'm going to add my 2 cents on that, if that's okay.
Please.
And what I'll say, Berkley, is the world is your oyster. And you have the right to decide where you bestow your brain power and your energies and your hours. And the decision you make now doesn't need to be forever, right? Mm-hmm. So you're working on really important work. You love your job. if you decide, I don't know, in 3 years from now that you want to train for the Olympics, or you want to go study for a PhD, or I don't know, you want to take up pottery, then you might say, okay, I'd like to downshift or downscale, but that will be your choice. Mm-hmm. And so I think staying in touch with yourself, and you seem like a person who's really self-aware and knows what you want out of life, you'll know when it stops being enjoyable, or you'll feel it, or people that love you will point it out to you. Sometimes that happens. And then doesn't mean you have to scrap your whole job. It just might mean that instead of going at 80 miles an hour, you go at 60 miles an hour for a few months. And the beauty of working in a really big company is there are so many lane changes you can make and roles and projects that you can shift based on what your life looks like, what your world looks like. But the one thing I would tell you is that sometimes in teams and in work environments, people who have caregiving responsibilities, and caregiving responsibilities are unfortunately not valued enough in the United States, and that's a conversation for another time, they tend to be pulled, whether it's young kids, whether it's aging parents. And then the employees who don't have those responsibilities end up picking up the slack. And that's not always fair, right, to those employees. And so whatever it is that you enjoy, or if you feel that you want to carve out some time to do whatever it is for you, whether it's exercising, taking a pottery class, going to see a show or a movie or whatever, carve out that time for you and set it on your calendar. And then what happens is work will always fill in the spaces around it. Because there's a never-ending amount of work, especially if we love our job and we're good at our job and we're motivated. And so if you ever feel like you need some Berkley time, just schedule something, whatever it is that gives you that energy that you're missing. And then I promise you, you will get the same amount of work done minus that hour. You'll just probably be more efficient about it.
Absolutely. It's so funny you say that, because there was a young man on the last program that I worked on, and he and his wife had recently had their second child. And I remember when I was very heavy in work mode, if I can maybe justify myself a little bit. But I remember one day he told me, listen, I leave at this time. So if you can't get me before then, I'm sorry, it'll have to wait till tomorrow. I remember thinking, what are you doing? And then I had to take a little bit of a step back and say, yes, people have lives. They need to take care of their children. That's not unfair to ask for. I will say in the civilian side, because really the Army will dictate. You can't be a primary caregiver and have your family rely solely on you. There has to be someone else.
Yeah.
And we actually dealt with that with some of our soldiers, and very difficult to go through. But here on the civilian side, it's very much a learning curve of work is important, but it's not everyone's primary focus. They have families that they take care of, or there's a life outside of work. Which I also think, I would like to say, I also feel the same way, and I love my family, and I like to think I have other priorities in life. But there are times, poor Patrick has been the one to come. He came when I was in Washington State at my last duty station, and had to say, everyone thinks you're stressed, and everyone thinks you maybe aren't thinking about your future right now. You're just very dug in to what's happening right now. And everyone's very worried. And so if I can tack on one more thing, I think when it comes to work-life imbalance and how do you manage it, you need a support network. You need a support group. And that was my family for me. My goodness, they had to come and pull me back from the edge a little bit and be like, all right, what are we doing? Let's sit down. Let's think it out. Poor Patrick had to take me out for a few drinks and say, let's chill out a little bit.
Poor Patrick. I love that stuff. But I like having that mission assigned to me. It's good.
My question to you is if you ever do that for him.
Ooh, no, I can grind harder, work more.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I don't think I've ever given you that direct feedback, but I do think, I'd like to think that especially when I come home, we check in just to make sure. Is everything all right? How are we doing? And a lot of it, honestly, is just, well, things suck, right? Or, wow, I'm stressed. I've got a lot going on. And then we're like, and then that's it. And then, just acknowledging it.
The Berkley Patrick moments are awesome because we get real with it. And then mom shows up and mom takes over. But when we do get...
And in a nurturing way. It's very much, okay, let's fix it.
More good. Because she's going to listen to this. I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, so all good. You want to take the lightning round, Rachel, and then we'll come.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think the advice and your experiences that you've shared are going to be so meaningful to our audience, whether they're just transitioning, whether they transitioned a long time ago, or whether
Or
they
they have
haven't
children
ever
transitioning, or
Yeah.
friends, or all kinds of people listening to this thing. So
Oh, yeah. Even if they're not affiliated with the military, I think people make transitions from career path to career path, from nonprofit to the private sector to for-profit, from academia to business. But let's go with lightning round. So these are quick hits. First thing that comes to mind, what is the most difficult leadership situation that you dealt with in the military?
Well, I hate it because I think it'll bring the mood down, but it's definitely, there were several suicides while I was there. Soldiers in my unit, or soldiers that had left my unit and moved on. New soldier that just joined my unit, and my commander wasn't there, so I had to take over. It's the most difficult part, but I do think there's a lot happening in the military trying to focus on mental health, so in a better path.
Can't even imagine how difficult that must be. And I'm sure as a leader, you had to be there for everyone else.
put the face on and do your best. And it certainly grows you up quick. I tell people all the time, Berkley, you got out when you were 26?
26, yeah.
Yeah, you get out at 26 in a 50-year-old head. I got out at 22 and I felt like I was 70. And then that's not a complaint. It's just the things you experience at such a young age with so much responsibility heaped upon you, it grows you quickly.
And nobody wishes for that, but that grit and that adversity builds muscle and builds character and fuels all kinds of successes in the future. Absolutely. On the flip side, what was the most difficult situation you've had to deal with in the civilian sector?
Oh, just adjusting in general, not the day-to-day life. I knew how to go to the grocery store and take care of myself day-to-day, but adjusting to civilian work and just being outside of the family of the Army, not having that network like I had before. It was the hardest part for sure.
I'm grateful that Northrop has a type of culture and environment provides a little bit of that. It's not the same, but it certainly seems similar.
Yeah.
The CEO's name is Kathy, right?
Yes, Kathy Warden.
Did she serve?
I don't believe so.
Okay. It's nice that she continues that. And I'm assuming she has lieutenants or advisors that discuss that. We won't ever know, I guess. But, good for Northrop for trying to provide that environment. It's great.
Yeah, 100%.
Tell us about the most memorable leadership experience or outcome that you saw in the military.
It's so hard because I have several. One I'm going to touch on very quickly. My first commander in the Army was just incredible, really down to earth, really related with every soldier in his unit. And that you just don't always find that in your military leadership. He was incredible to have as a first commander. He really cared about everyone, and he showed it. When you reported directly to him and you left the unit, he would actually make you a personalized plaque. And in it had your usual unit information, but he would always, we were the Hollywood unit, we were in a headquarters unit, and he would pick a show or a movie character, and he would take a quote that he felt applied to you and would put it on this plaque. And he had picked one from Game of Thrones for me because I was a huge Game of Thrones fan when this was happening. And I hang it up wherever I move to. And it just, every time I look at it, I'm like, it just makes you feel so appreciated and so valued on an individual level. Not even I was a good worker for him. He really saw you and said, you were great. You did great things. And then just very quickly, another one that I had is there was a time in my last unit in the military, I definitely messed up. I did something I wasn't supposed to. There was an issue. And my commander at the time, I went to tell him about it, head hung. I like to think maybe I punished myself more than others will. I'm very hard on myself when I mess up. And he said, okay, I got your back. Let's go figure it out. And having that kind of support in your leadership, just invaluable. It was incredible. So that was a great experience as well.
Two things out of that for the audience. So have your people's back.
Yeah.
Even if it hurts, take it on the chin for them. Because if they're worth it, don't ruin them over it. Mistakes happen, just don't repeat them. And then the one that really hit me listening to you was you were seen. Heck, that CO made you feel real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a helpful thing to pass along.
Yeah. One more takeaway from that is a safe environment for people on your team to come and tell you when they make a mistake. When our kids were little, now they're 18 and 21, but when they were little, we would always tell them, if you are in trouble or if you did something, come to us and tell us, and do not lie. You will get a much worse consequence if we find out that you weren't truthful or if you were sneaky about it. And so by that reaction that your commander had, what happened next is you knew that next time if something doesn't go right, you would feel comfortable. And I'm sure that you signaled that to other people that were in your group. So that, I think, goes a really long way. Thank you for sharing. And how about in the civilian space? Sounds like you've also had great leadership. Tell us about a unique, memorable experience there.
Yeah, phenomenal leadership. I do like to say that I feel very lucky within my chain of command, I would call it here, but in my organization, there's really only between myself and the CEO, which I have to tell you is probably 10 levels of people, right? Maybe a little bit less. Almost all of them are women. And I've loved that since I've been here. It actually does make a big difference to me. And I think the women that I see in my leadership chain are phenomenal women and very strong. They're very strong leaders. My direct supervisors since I've come to Northrop have been nothing short of amazing. If I had to take a specific instance, it's actually really difficult because they've been so great day to day. My first supervisor here that I worked with on the Halo program, we were up until 10 p.m. on the phone with legal, right? Or we're working all through the weekend. And she tried to, because I was newer in, she would try to shield me from it. Or if I did have to be there, she made sure that it was worth the time that we were putting in. It's not wasted hours. We're all sitting there. If I was on the phone, she wanted to make sure it wasn't just us sitting there brainstorming where I really couldn't help much. So, and she really would. She'd be like, I have a meeting, but I don't want you to be there. Not because I don't want you to be a part of it, but because it's just not worth your time. And you should go enjoy your time after 5 p.m.
She probably wishes someone did that for her. So she's passing forward what she missed. Good for her.
She's phenomenal. I cannot appreciate. She was the one that hired me in to Northrop Grumman that Martin Esgoda worked with. And holy cow, I couldn't have asked for a better supervisor when I came in. But my supervisor now, same. It's another woman, and she is phenomenal. I don't know. She's actually not here this week, which is why I am working a little bit of search support this week. And I have spent a couple hours in her shoe on day one. And I said, how does this woman do it? She manages so much day to day. And again, she protects you from the worst of it. And if I ever came to her and said, I've messed up, she's another one that I know would have my back. And she would make sure that she was presenting us as a united front to leadership up. And I have to tell you, I have so much trust in her because of it.
That's amazing.
That's great, Burke. That's really great.
What great experiences you've had. So a few takeaways, and this is just a few high-level notes, but if you are someone who is graduating from college or leaving the military or thinking about changing careers or returning to the workforce after an extended break, please know that you'll probably feel a little unsettled. You'll feel a lack of confidence. You might feel scared, right? Listen to what Berkley told us. She served in the military. She's got a graduate degree. She's really great at her job. And she even felt a little unsure of herself at the very beginning. So this is really normal. It's always great to choose an environment where you have the right supports, but it can be really easy to second guess yourself at a time like that. And knowing that other people experience it too might make it feel more normalized. If you're a leader and you have people working for you who are really driven and really committed to their work and believe in the mission, and will not stop, as a leader, help them create the boundaries, not necessarily to tell them you need to stop working because obviously it's a free country, but to be able to be more clear about the deadlines or about the duration of the projects, recognizing that people can push themselves if it is a short-term or finite assignment, but that burnout can really happen soon if there aren't those parameters put into place. And it really is up to our leaders that are around us to look out, especially for the high performers. Again, they're not going to say, Berkley, stop working, but they might say, hey, I see that you're spending all kinds of time. This isn't due for another 6 months. It's okay. You don't need to have it in by next week. And then you might say, oh, okay, I was trying to impress them, but if they're really cool with it, then let me go and ride my bike around the park tomorrow after work. So just a couple of takeaways from me. Patrick, what about you?
Couple of things I'll pull out that I heard her say, maybe not specifically or directly, but the intent was go hard. Make sure you stand next to your people or in front of your people, not behind them. Be thoughtful as it relates to learning. And people are going to make mistakes. And the best leaders are the ones that take it on the chin for you, if they can, or with you, and never point. And that's why it's a team. Like, team leaders lead a team. The team's got the leaders back, and it should be vice versa. And that takes building trust and confidence in each other and time, and find where you fit best. It'd be like putting on a pair of gloves. If you don't like where you are, or you don't feel comfortable where you are, and it's not checking your boxes, you shouldn't stay. Berkley has been lucky enough to have exited the world's greatest army. And I always used to say, I'll never be able to replace or replicate the esprit de corps I felt when I was in uniform, but I always tried to make the places I worked at, I tried to inject a culture where people felt that the mission was bigger than themselves. So like Berkley said, she always wanted to be a part of something bigger than herself, to leave her mark. And I think everybody should want that, not just people in uniform. Like, you only get so many sex spins around the sun in your lifetime, and it should be spent doing something that is meaningful. Because if you're going to spend that much time grinding for your paycheck, for whatever, man, make it worth it and leave your mark on it. Make sure that when you're not in the room, they know you were there. So that's what I heard. And she's certainly done a good job of that, and I couldn't be prouder.
Oh, well, Berkley, thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to meet you. You are so impressive, and all of the examples and stories and input you shared will be so meaningful to everyone who's listening.
Thank you,
we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Leadership and Motivation Unleashed. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and review. It only takes 1 minute, and it helps the show grow and reach more leaders like you in search of advice and motivation.
And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Please remember to share with your friends and family and coworkers, mentors, trusted advisors. This show is for everybody. See you next time.